When it comes to bird drawing, there are so many different fascinating birds to draw inspiration from, and perhaps one of the most colorful with a very unique set of feather combinations is that of the peacock. Now, the peacock is a very unique bird and often is associated with this quality of confidence and elegance, and has been a reoccurring visual addition throughout many artworks from various eras. So with that being said, hey guys, my name is Matt. Welcome to another unique video by artincontext.org, where we explore various art related topics, and in today's video we will be breaking down the process of how to draw a peacock. Now with that being said, let's get into it. Now this particular tutorial is done on a digital device, however all drawing processes can be done with traditional drawing materials, and all necessary materials can be accessed through the links below in the article, so you can check those out. Now the way in which we're going to start this tutorial is by a simple sketch of our peacock. So we want to begin by shaping the peacock with a very light sketch. The intention here is to form the peacock in its most iconic basic shapes. So we want to make sure we are capturing the scale of the animal with a very light skeleton sketch that establishes the placement of the different features. Now peacocks have elongated necks and connected to a body which is quite large and rounded. The wings have these very simple triangular shapes that kind of sit on either side of the body. The legs of the peacock could be described as being placed directly beneath the central area of the body and are very narrow in shape. The legs of the peacock are also quite long and are comparable in length to that of the neck of the peacock. Now once again, the intention with this first step is to just shape the peacock in its general shapes, making sure we understand scale and position these various features together. But the intention of this drawing once again is that we are also dealing with the male peacock naturally, because this allows us to explore a lot of color variation, which is really fun. And when these feathers are perched up, they do create a very circular shape that forms around the entire peacock. So we are going to make a peacock drawing of a male peacock naturally with the perched feathers, so that we can explore playing around with the unique pattern in the peacock. Now once we have established this general sketch, have kind of positioned all the various features in their general shapes, we can now start to refine the peacock sketch. So the idea is that once we have established the basic shapes that represent the main features of the peacock, we can now start to work with our erasers and pencils as we refine these features. So the intention here is to work on each feature one at a time and make them slightly more identifiable. Now as we start with the head, which is a good suggestion because it's a very unique feature, we want to make sure we capture the rounded quality within the head of the peacock. So we also want to make sure that the beak is placed at the front of the face and that the eye is placed slightly above the beak in the center of the head. So the peacock has a very unique teapot-like shape where the neck becomes quite narrow, similar to that of a spout. And we also want to just make sure to capture the rounded quality of the body as well. So do think about that teapot shape in terms of the body and neck, with the wings placed on the sides of the body, kind of sitting directly on the body or directly next to the body on either side, where the wings will become slightly more narrow near the edges as well to maintain that spear-headed shape. Now as the tail raises in the air, the shape becomes rounded and forms a large patterned feather structure around the peacock. And as we continue, we'll see that the legs of the peacock kind of stern from the lower section of the body and are quite narrow in shape as they connect into four talons that establish the feet. A good suggestion is to also go back to the head of the peacock and make sure that they are capturing these features, or you are capturing these features as accurately as possible. Again, the head is a very unique aspect of the peacock and does have a lot of details. So the head also has a very specific pattern that forms around the eyes, as well as these very small feathers that stand up on the head like a mohawk. Now what we want to do is we want to start enhancing these features of the peacock, and this is where we'll start to integrate some color into our peacock drawing to basically enhance the feathers slightly more. We also want to start working on the head again, and this is where we slowly start to work our way from the head to the body and then ultimately into the feathers. Now the idea here is we want to slowly work our way through the body. The head and the body do have this mixture of a deep kind of turquoise blue that forms along the entire head and chest. As we shift towards the underbelly section of the body, these colors start to shift towards a little bit more of a darker coloration. So this is where we can start to utilize blacks and maybe like darker blues to represent a shadowing beneath the body. The wings of the peacock have layered qualities. They have these layered qualities which have different colors that basically distinguish the feathers on top from the ones below. So the feathers on top of the wings give a very unique kind of grey color with a disheveled pattern that forms along their surface due to the rough feathery texture. So that's something we just want to make note of as we slowly integrate color, but you do want to take your time on the coloration within your peacock drawing. drawing, you want to make sure you are representing the colors accurately, especially within the facial features where the coloration and patterns are very specific. The next thing we want to do is we want to start adding lines and shape to the feather train. So the feather train of a peacock has a very unique collection of eye-shaped features that are positioned and spread throughout the entire feather structure. So before drawing in each feature, you want to basically demarcate the structure with some subtle line work that will establish the placement of each of these eye features. Now, once we have established these little areas for the eye features, we then want to start working on some light line work that represents the barbs that form around these features. Now, naturally, the features should form in a linear row that kind of circulates around the entire peacock. And we can emphasize these linear rows with small lines to represent the barbs in the feathers. You can also draw lines to separate each row of eye features within the feather structure. By doing this, you can also see how it will then basically allow you to work row by row, where you integrate smaller line work around these eye features to capture the texture of the train of the feathers. Now, a good suggestion is to also add some line work around each of the eye features to emphasize their teardrop shape. And by doing this, we can then work around those features row by row without accidentally drawing lines over them. So the idea is you just want to take your time simply demarcating the areas of these features, establishing them, and then working through them row by row. So continue this process, slowly working in these lines row by row until you have worked from one side of the feather train to the other side. Now again, the intention is to demarcate areas for these eye features in the feathers, then work around those demarcated areas with some line work to define the barb texture in the feathers. You should take your time with this process, as the feather train is an essential feature to capture within your peacock drawing. You can also work in these features with darker green colors to represent the base colors of the peacock's feather train, but otherwise, once we have established these general areas and demarcated them, we can start adding details to the actual eye features. And as we continue, the intention now is, once we have established the area with the eye features, or where the eye features will be placed in the feather train, we then want to establish the details of the eye features throughout a layering process with colors. So we want to basically make sure the shape is also a teardrop shape, which is indicative of the more realistic representation of how the peacock's features in the feather train actually are, or how they appear. So we want to build the feather or the features through the layers of colors, starting with oranges, then blue, and then lastly a black arc shape that kind of features as this eye shape, and making it a little bit more interesting. You can play around with coloration, but this is the general color scheme. You can also look at some visual references to assist you in this particular coloring process, but we will continue with that process row by row, which is really important, until we have gone through the entire feather train. So make sure to go row by row, working on layering one eye feature at a time. It will take a long time, but if you remain patient, it will have a good outcome in the end. You want to make sure to take breaks as well once you are tired, and this way you can engage with the process without potentially making a mistake. Again, as slowly as you can, you want to build up these layers of color within each feature. You will start to see the peacock drawing resemble a little bit more of a realistic representation of that very unique feather train. But with the peacock feather drawing process, it is just simply a matter of taking your time and adding in each of these features one by one. They're not necessarily difficult to do, but it does just take a little bit of patience and some time. Now, once we have done that, we can shift into drawing the legs of the peacock. So we want to make sure that as we draw the legs, they remain quite narrow and form directly beneath the peacock in a very vertical fashion. But once again, as we continue with the legs in this vertical fashion and shift down to the feet, we just want to make sure we have 4 talons or 4 digits within the feet, as this is obviously indicative of the actual physiology of the peacock. Now, staying with the legs a little bit, we'll also find that peacocks have a grayish green hue to them, and we can represent this coloration by building up some layers of green and gray within the legs of our peacock. Once again, starting with some lighter hues and then slightly darkening the legs with some darker hues. So we can also darken some areas to also suggest some shadowing and to represent a little bit more of a 3-dimensional shape in the leg, where some areas are lighter and some areas are darker. But otherwise, we're going to shift into adding in some touch-ups. So once we have worked through all the main features of our peacock drawing, we want to basically work with a darker color to enhance any shadows and line work that can be used, again, just to enhance the features. once again, try going through all features and focusing a lot of attention on the head of the peacock is really important because it's a very unique and smaller feature of the peacock that can easily be overlooked. But again, you do just want to take your time working from the head through to the body and then slowly working your way through the entire train of feathers. But as you work through the entire peacock drawing, you can also basically work in some greener qualities into the feather train with some strokes of green lines just to emphasize that green hue within the train of feathers. Again, make sure you maintain the feather pattern within these various rows. But otherwise, guys, taking your time, working through all the features one at a time and then going over them or any details that might need a little bit of a touch-up. And that is the basic process of how to draw a peacock through a few simple steps. This tutorial is on just the basic process of how to draw a peacock. But again, this kind of concept of how to form birds from general shape, then refining the shape, then integrating color, and then enhancing it with details can be applied to many bird or animal drawings. But basically, some key things to remember is shape the animal first. That's really important. Then once you have done that, you can take your time refining the features, then add details on top of your colored features. And then lastly, you can experiment with how you can utilize this very unique animal in your own artwork. Again, learning how to draw peacock is also very specific, but it's such a great opportunity to explore color variation, just to explore how to utilize colors in various ways with various mediums. But otherwise, guys, if you like this video and are interested in similar or related topics, maybe in bird drawing or other related animal topics, please do let us know in the comment section below. You can also show some support by liking and subscribing, which helps us to grow the channel, which enables us to then explore more art related topics and make more art content for you guys, which we love to do. But otherwise, thanks again for tuning in. That is it from me today. Until next time, cheers.